and welcome back to the Pig and Whistle for another episode of Tales from Azeroth. Come grab a drink and relax as I go through some stories and moments that you can hopefully relate to. Today's topic is all about PvP again. Now, it's not like my very first episode, it's classes within PvP. So we're going to be looking at all of the different classes that there are within WoW, their pros and cons in terms of a PvP situation, battlegrounds, open world, stuff like that. So I have a little confession here. This is the second time I am doing this recording. The first time it switched my audio device. So I was sat there for, I believe the audio was 39 minutes long. I sat there for 39 minutes talking into something that wasn't even picking up my voice. So that was good fun. But let's get straight on to it. So that might be why this episode is a day late. I might be able to get it out on the day, but you'll understand why if you listen to the podcast and it does come out on the Saturday. But we're going to start off with my favourite class and the one that I play personally, which is the Mage. Now, Mage, for pros, you have a lot of CC, a lot of crowd control. You have great survivability with your ice blocks, your ice barrier, your mana shield, and you have nice burst damage. And this burst damage can be... so you'd have one big burst of damage, then it would be very consistent sort of damage with Arcane Explosion, with more Fire Blast thrown in there, with Scorch that does relatively good damage, and then you can crit on the Scorch, etc. Now, mages are especially weak to damage over time effects, so dots, as we know them. So Shadow War Pain will actually take off just half of my HP from a Shadow Priest. It is that annoying and that obnoxious. Warlock dots, such as Siphon Life, Corruption, Curse of Agony, and there's one more. Can't quite think of it, but I think you might have to spec into it or something. But Curse of Agony, I can obviously decurse myself, so that's not too much of an issue. But these dots will just tick away at your health, and they do substantial damage. Like, don't get me wrong, they really do hurt. So using one of your defensive cooldowns, like an Ice Block, for example, if you don't have Ice Barrier, which I don't, in my speciality, in my talent build, so using an ice block feels like a waste to sort of cleanse myself of these dots and just survive them, to be honest. Now, Mage is great. So, like I said, there's Burst, CC, great survivability. Now, the best matchup for a Mage is a Warrior. Now, a Warrior cannot do anything to a Mage, really. If it's an all cooldowns fight, if everyone has cooldowns in that 1v1, both the Mage and the Warrior, the Mage should 99% of the time win, unless the Warrior just absolutely one-shots the Mage. Just absolutely one-shots, and you get lucky with the crits, pretty much. Now, the Mage has a lot of CC, like I've said, and that is the strong point of the class, the crowd control. You have Polymorphs, you have Frost Novas, you have just general slows with your Frostbolt, your Ice Armor. If a melee hits you, they're slowed by 30 or 40%. You can talent into it so that it increases the slow and the stuff. But they are very, very good within PvP. They are probably... If I had to give it a tier list from S tier to F, I would say that they are S tier in PvP. And that is not me being biased. That really isn't. That is me genuinely looking at all of the classes and thinking what's best in PvP and what can do the most. I would say Mage is a very much up there with regards to that. Next on the list, we have Warriors. Now, Warriors have very high burst. This is one of the pros. They have very high burst, and they can just slap you if you're a clothy. I mean, I've been one-shot by a Warrior before when I've had, no ice block. It's not fun. You just get sent to the graveyard. You go again, pretty much. And they have very high health pools, and they are tanky. They wear plate, they wear mail, so any physical opponent that they come up against will not hit them for pretty much anything, to be honest with you. Now, the weakness, unlike the mage, is they are weak to CC. Any type of CC that is used on a warrior will basically give them a death sentence. So their trinket, their PvP trinket, can get them out of a root or a slow. I'm not too sure what else it might be, but it can get them out of one of them cooldowns, one of them CC cooldowns, and then that's it for 5 minutes. They just have to accept their fate. They have to accept that whatever route they get stuck in, they're just stuck there. Whatever polymorph they get CC'd in, they're stuck in the polymorph. They're just a big turtle walking about. But the best sort of matchup for a warrior is probably a rogue, in all honesty, looking at it. So rogues are insane in terms of crowd control. Now, you might think this is a bit stupid because, warriors are weak to crowd control, aren't they? But the crowd control that they have is just stuns. They can slow, and don't get me wrong, some rogues will absolutely decimate a warrior. But for a rogue to burst a warrior down would be super tough. If the warrior is expecting it, that's the thing. If the warrior, if the warrior is expecting the rogue, the warrior can be even more tanky. He can put on a shield and stuff, therefore more armor, therefore reducing more physical damage. So the rogue CC chain is insane. And on any sort of clothy, like a priest, like a warlock, like a mage, if they can't get out of it, the mage, then it would be a guaranteed kill because the clothy can't get out of that CC chain, and in the meantime their health bar is just slowly going down because they don't have that physical damage reduction. Unlike a warrior who has massive health pool and has a reduced damage reduction in physical damage, which is about 50% for most warriors, about that sort of average, a rogue can't burst that higher HP in that CC chain. And to be honest, a warrior could probably turn it around because a rogue wears leather. A warrior still has that potential to just slap the rogue out of here and be like, why is this gnat hitting me almost? Like that type of thing. For a warrior, a good matchup is also a priest. Now, I'm not talking about shadow priests. Shadow priests are annoying as hell. But any other sort of priest, a holy or a disc, the holy and disc priest can't do enough damage to the warrior to threaten him, but the warrior can just keep bashing away at this poor clothed class until it's dead and it's run out of mana. So a couple of things to, look over there for the warrior. It depends if you get lucky with crits, to be honest. If I'm being honest, it depends if you got a pocket healer as a warrior, and it depends what kind of crits you're getting on that day. If you're getting lucky, you're getting lucky. Now, rogues, touch on this a bit. Insane crowd control. Absolutely nuts crowd control. Stealth is also a huge positive, and very nice survivability as well, like the mage. So, stealth, I don't even need to go into any explanation. You're hidden from sight. You can hide. You can go around the back. Absolutely decimate their healers. No point. Even trying sometimes if you're a healer. Because if no one's peeling for you, you're caught up in their CC chain and it's just good night. Again, the CC. We come back to the CC. They have so many stuns that it's unreal. They have a 4-second cheap shot into a 6-second kidney shot into a blind, like a 10-second blind, and then they would generally sap you off of that, and then they would cheap shot you again into another kidney shot. They could put you in a full CC chain for a minute and you could just do nothing about it sometimes. It's that ridiculous. But with the survivability aspect, if they roll certain talents and they have certain gear, whenever they vanish, they can heal for 500 HP. They can have blind, sprint and vanish twice with the right talents, as you can get a talent called preparation, and this talent refreshes them abilities. These are 5-minute like cooldown abilities, which are insane. So you have a lot of survivability just with the CC alone, and the vanish and the stealth. You can just run off, sprint away. So you're kind of safe with picking the rogue. Anything to do with being a tanky class, or any skilled caster that can get out of your CC, is your weakness as a rogue. Now, tanky classes, because obviously the physical damage reduction, the high HP pools that usually come with the tanky classes, and anything like that pretty much. Now, with the skilled casters, what I mean there is any caster that can outplay you and outthink you. And by this, I'm going to elaborate more. It's, you have to be one step ahead of the rogue every time. You need to know exactly what he's going to do and counter it before he's even done it. So with a rogue, I know that as a mage, he will cheap shot me. Most rogues tend to cheap shot. Some use ambush, in which case if it's ambush, I have to blink away as fast as I can. But the first thing that I will do is blink against a rogue as a mage, no matter if it's cheap shot or ambush. This creates a bit of distance. He'll most likely sprint or just walk up to me and blind me. Now I have a couple of ideas on this. I either ice block immediately, get out of ice block, and then Nova, in which case he'll vanish. And you need to know the intricacies when playing against a rogue if you're a caster, because rogues are one of the most fun classes to fight as a mage personally, because it's all about who uses their cooldowns first. Like if I get caught in a blind without my ice block, then he's going to get a little bit of damage on me and potentially do a massive burst of damage to bring me down to half HP. Now, it's them small intricacies that make the PvP fun against a rogue as a caster. Moving on, we've got hunters. Now, hunters are a bit of a weird one. They have very nice burst on cloth targets, and they're fairly tanky, plus with a lot of HP, to be honest. But because of there's a lot more weaknesses, I'd say, to hunter than there is positives. You can be dead zoned so easily by any sort of caster, which like a mage. You can just be run down by anything like a paladin maybe, or like a warrior or a rogue certainly. So anything that can dead zone you or is too tanky to burst for a hunter, I would generally say is a weakness. The dead zone thing, if you don't know what dead zoning is, there's a range in which a hunter can do nothing to you. So they can't melee you and they can't use their bow, because the bow is a required range from 8 yards to 35 or 41 if you're spec'd into like the ranged talents with hunters. And then obviously melee is melee distance, so about 5 yards, I'm pretty sure. So you've got that dead zone of like 5 yards to 8 yards where they just can't do anything to you. They just sit there. And it's the best thing ever to catch a hunter in Frost Nova, and you just sit there pretty much and just cast a fireball and they can't do anything. They're just sat in that Frost Nova staring at you. I've gotten a couple of sort of sarcastic stuff happen. They'd usually just stand there and then emote clap at me. That's always quite fun, because it's like, yep, you can't do anything. That is literally the only thing you can do. You can only emote, which is great. Again, it's a very weird one because hunters are, I would say, a lot more weaknesses to positives, but that might just be my view on it because I can dead zone a hunter quite well, and I am quite a hunter counter. Even though he can one-shot me, I can counter him quite well. So moving on to paladins. Now, paladins are something that I don't necessarily know and have that much experience going against, but I do duel some from time to time. But paladins are very tanky, quite high HP, and they have heals and bubbles. Now, the tanky and high HP they're self-explanatory. They take less physical damage and they have a high health pool, so it can't be busted as easily. But the heals are the best thing. They can heal anyone, and their healing is very, like, prolific? I can't say the word. The healing is very good. There we go. I just couldn't quite get the word out. I know what I wanted to say. You probably knew what I wanted to say, but it was just on the tip of my tongue. But their heals are very good. They have flash heal, which is a 1.5 second cast, stuff like that. And then we have the bubbles. Now, bubbles are like ice block. It makes you immune to either everything or a certain type of damage. Now, they have Blessing of Protection, which they can put on anyone, and that makes them immune to all physical protection. They have what I call Bubble. It's just called Bubble for me, which is Divine Shield. Pretty sure it's Divine Shield, don't quote me on that. But it makes you immune to everything for 12 seconds. That's it. And it's a better version of Ice Block because you can heal yourself, you can run away, you can do everything with it. It cleanses you still like Ice Block, but the only downside is you only get one Divine Shield, so it kind of sucks for paladins, considering mages can get 2 Ice Blocks. But some of the weaknesses that I feel as if paladins lack or are weak against are damage over time effects, and this goes for Shadow Priests and Locks, because Shadow Priests have a silence, 5-second silence that you can spec into, and damage over time effects ignore armor, so it's not physical damage, it is magical damage, and it can potentially, break that high HP that they have, and it will slowly sort of rot away at their health, in a sense. Moving on to Priest. Now, Priests I love. Shields, great heals, some nice dot damage, a potential for a light stun, a 3-second stun. I think it's 3 seconds, it might be 2. But now the stun is a blackout proc, so it can be procced by any shadow damage. So Shadow Ward Pain you generally have on most targets can be procced by that. So it's just nice to get the stun every now and again. But I don't even need to go through the positives with Priests. Healing is absolutely insane. The shields are just next level. And yeah, like I said, the dot damage is just that little bit extra on top, the cherry on top. Now, weakness-wise, any sort of burst damage, like real burst damage, I'm talking Shaman's burst damage, like with the Chain Lightning into Earthshock damage, that can potentially really break a priest and make them panic. Any class with a counter spell or a kick, so rogues, warriors, mages, I'm pretty sure that's it. Druids can also interrupt with Feral Charge. I'm pretty sure that's it. So anything with a counter spell, the priest has to be a bit more cautious of, because if they get locked on heals, they're locked for 10 seconds with counterspell. They're locked with, I think, 2 seconds with Earthshock from a Shaman. They're locked with 5 seconds for a rogue, or 6 seconds from a rogue, and 3 seconds from a warrior kick. So you do have to play a bit safer with all of these counterspells active on the field. But the one that really gets them is the Purges. Because shield, it can be a magic effect. It can be purged off of the priest. So the shield's just not even there, possibly. And any sort of heals, like renew and stuff, it can also be purged off of the priest. Therefore not giving the priest as much utility as what it can potentially have. Therefore reducing the priest, completely. To kind of a meh class in that sense. Sorry, you can hear my voice going. It's because I did this yesterday and my voice isn't quite there. it's still kind of recovering because it was quite a long podcast I did yesterday, but it's still recovering. I'm still not quite used to sitting in front of my monitor and just talking constantly for 30 or so minutes. But you'll hear it dry up towards the end. I'll keep doing my best to keep talking. Don't you worry. I will keep pursuing and keep going. Now, moving on to the next one, Warlocks. Despise the class. It's ridiculous. They don't die in battlegrounds. They are the gods of BGs. If you make them, they're just ridiculous. High dot damage, high survival, and fear. Now, fear is the kick in the teeth, really. Now, Polymorph's great. Polymorph, you can just CC someone. Any damage on the Polymorph will break it. Now, with fear, you can CC someone, but you can still damage them. And it still has the potential to not break. So I've been sat in fears that are like 20 seconds long and been sat in them for 15 seconds just with these dots ticking away at my health and died within 15 seconds of that, like, fear. I hadn't even gotten out of the fear. There was nothing that I could do. I had no ice blocks, no nothing, no trinket. I just sat there and died in a fear. It's so obnoxious to play against. It's unreal. Plus, Warlocks have their pets. So Fell Hunter, you have the Succubus, and you have the Voidwalker. Each individually are amazing. Voidwalker for the shield, Succubus for the seduction CC, and Fell Hunter for the purges and the de-spell on yourself. Now, weaknesses to Warlocks is nothing. This is my conclusion. Warlocks can only beat themselves. If they have the wrong pet out against the wrong class, they are at a serious disadvantage. So, like myself, a mage, if a hunter has a Fell Hunter out, I will just not go near that Warlock, because that Fell Hunter can dispel me. It can dispel his master, the Warlock, of any sort of CC, so Polymorph, etc. Whereas on the other hand, if it was a Succubus, I know that the only thing that the Succubus can do is Seduce, which is their CC. Now, I can actually counterspell this Seduce, therefore outplaying the Warlock and getting my free damage in, whereas he probably wants to set up his damage with the Seduction CC. Now, the only thing that a Warlock is weak to is himself, is if he makes misplays, because a Warlock that is spec'd right can kill anything. And it's just sad, to be honest. It hurts and it pains me. Everything dies to a Warlock, I swear. Now, enough heartbreak with the Warlock. We're going to move on to Druids. Now, PvP-wise, they can be good. They can have some nice, consistent damage and stuff. But they are all about running away. Druids are speed incarnate. They are Formula 1 cars that will just neum across the battleground and good luck catching them, pretty much. They are very tanky while in bear form. They have some very nice instant heals if you're spec'd right. They have 2 instant heals, Swift Mend and Nature's Swiftness. Again, both absolutely insane. They have Innovate to keep them sustained and keep their mana up for more heals and more shape-shifting. They can't be locked down. As a mage, you can't lock them down with Frost Nova or any slow, because they can shapeshift out and then back in their form again. And it will take away any movement impairing effects. Now, the only thing that can beat, or the only weakness to a druid, is a flash bomb from engineering if you catch them in their bear form, because it fears them for 10 seconds. Or if everyone connects to that druid at one time. Now, this is a team sort of thing. If the druid gets caught out and is not playing to their best ability, then that is their weakness, because they aren't as... how would you say it? They aren't as experienced in the class on how to get away from other classes. I'm not too sure if that made sense. But for a mage, it's very, very tough for me to do enough damage to kill a druid and keep up with him at the same time if the druid plays his cards right. It's almost impossible, I swear. So you need multiple people to connect to that druid and burst that druid down all at the same time. That is his weakness, being caught out or is unaware of how to play the class perfectly, in a sense, because the druid skill cap for PvP is very high, don't get me wrong. It is very high, and people who have mastered druid are just incredible at it, like, to say the least. But there are many druids who need to still get to that sort of skill cap, and that is their weakness, that they haven't quite got there yet. You can hear my voice going, I bet. I'm really trying. It's just one more class, so I'm really pushing through it. Sorry guys if it like upsets the sort of quality of the podcast. I really don't sort of mean it. But last but not least, shamans. Now they have one-shot potential, to say the least. I've been one-shot by shamans so many times. I actually got crit today. I was doing some battlegrounds. I got crit today for a 3k chain lightning into a 1.5k earth shock. That's 4,500 damage, and I have about 3,500 health. So, you know, it was fun. It was fun. A lot of burst damage, and the shaman's pros come from their totem usage. Now, a little bit more on that later, but shaman's weakness is melee that are very tanky and cannot be one-shot. I would say a warrior is very good against a shaman because they have the counter spell potential, they have pummel, and they have like mortal strike to stop their heals and stuff. Or a very good rogue, to be honest. A very good rogue can take down a decent shaman, to say the least. Or casters that can get the jump on the shaman. So casters that can polymorph the shaman without them knowing, like mages. Warlocks, if they can seduce the shaman without knowing. Stuff like that. But going back to the positive of the shaman, the totems. So totems, if used correctly, are insane. Grounding totem against any sort of caster class will redirect the next spell used on that class, on the shaman, or anyone around him, or any like teammate around that shaman within like a certain radius towards that totem. So if you do a spell that doesn't do any damage, like a polymorph, the totem will like tank that polymorph, but the totem won't be killed because it's immune to a polymorph and polymorph does no damage. So you have to kill the totem off before you can focus the shaman. And by that time, the shaman's trying to like burst you down with his chain lightning and stuff. So it's a sort of game of cat and mouse. It's like, I know what you're going to do, but I will react to it fast enough so that it doesn't mean anything, pretty much. So shamans can be very good and they can be exceptional at times, but they can also be one of the worst classes if you cannot manage your totems, pretty much. It's all about that totem usage and how well you know which totem does what and what totem is best in each situation. Now, with all the classes talked about and stuff, I'm going to sort of make a tier list. This is my own personal tier list. I might be biased a bit because I am a mage. Sorry about that little notification. But I might be biased a bit because I am a mage. But I'm going to give it my best to sort of, you know, spread it out and give it the best. There is no class that is absolutely horrible at like anything in particular. This is just in a general battleground setting, in a Warsong Gulch, like 1v1 kind of settings, it's going to be a bit different. So, starting off with the mage, I would definitely say it's S+. Or we'll go from S tier to C tier, because I don't think anything is below C tier, trust me. Everything is good in its own right. Mage, I would say, is S+. I would say Warlock is definitely S+ as well. If you can use the class right, it could be an A, but I would definitely say it's an S+ in my opinion. I would say going down to sort of A, potentially S+. I would say Rogue. Now, Rogue are absolutely nuts at everything. If you could play a Rogue and get the CC chain down correctly, go for it. Like, it's one of the better classes in the game, and just go for it. Now, following that, I would say definitely a Priest. Priest is A class, I would say. We'll go... you see, it's tough, because I don't necessarily have experience with Paladins, but they are very good. I would definitely say it's about B tier, possibly A tier for Paladins. I would go with a Druid for also B tier, because Druids are very good at running flags and doing the objective, but apart from that, there isn't much that they could do, to be honest. I would definitely give Shaman a B tier as well, potentially A. Warriors, I would give B, because they are very much frontline and they are very much putting their body on the line so that everyone else can do the DPS, and we do appreciate you, Warriors. We really do, trust me. And then finally, I would give Hunter probably the C tier out of all of this. Now, don't get me wrong, Hunters are very skillful class. They have a very high skill cap. But from what I have seen within Battlegrounds, they are very easily countered and can just lack what is needed within a battleground, I guess is the best way to put it. But with all of that wrapped up, I will have to say goodbye for this week. Thank you all very much for listening as always. Again, sorry if this has come out a day after it originally was planned. I have really tried to get it out on the day, but again, the audio just wasn't recording. It happens. Shouldn't happen again though, because I don't know why it changed the audio settings. It just did. I don't know. Blame the technology, not the person. We'll go with that. Thank you all very much for watching as always, and I will see you next week for another tale. Goodbye all.